My dad has forced me to wear the hijab ever since I was a little girl. For a long time, I didn't question it, I thought it was normal, even something I wanted. But everything changed around the time I turned 15 or 16, when both my parents did things that completely broke me. Growing up, I wasn't allowed to be independent in any way. I had to depend entirely on my dad for everything. If I ever came home from school with new information or something I learned from a teacher, instead of being happy for me, he'd get angry, simply because he wasn't the one who taught it to me. It was like he couldn't stand the idea of me learning or thinking for myself. He never allowed me to work, not until now, and I'm already 21. He always had some religious excuse ready, saying it was haram for me to work, or that I'd fall into debt if I tried to make money on my own. But the truth is, I just wanted to live like a normal young adult. I wanted to buy my own clothes, treat myself sometimes, and not always wait for my mom to decide when or what I could have. I wasn't allowed to have friends either, apparently, that was haram too. He said friends would influence me, make me talk too much, and tell me my life was weird. Maybe he was right about that last part, because it is weird to grow up locked inside your own home, terrified of doing anything wrong, constantly told the world outside is dangerous and corrupt. And even when I tried to reconnect with my faith, to rebuild that relationship with God on my own terms, he made it impossible. Imagine trying to pray sincerely, only to have someone hovering over you saying, "I don't believe you. Do it again in front of me." Or being told to announce when your period ends, not out of care, but because he wanted proof you were praying again. Even my mom doesn't go that far. My entire life has been one long restriction. I've never been allowed to go out freely, to experience anything, to just be. But tomorrow, I'm going to my first job interview, and I'm doing it without my hijab. Not because I hate it, but because I'm done pretending I still have a choice when I never really did. At this point, my faith feels shattered beyond repair. Every time I tried to believe again, every time I tried to be hopeful, he crushed it. So yeah, I'm done. I'm done trying to please people who only know how to control, not care. Call it my rebellion, my freedom, or my so-called whole phase, whatever it is, it's mine. For the first time in my life, I get to decide who I am and what I want to do.
In the early 90s, I worked as a junior admin at a very large financial firm. I was taking night classes at CUNY and really strapped for cash as I wasn't paid well. The great thing about my job is that I got to eat for free because the bosses always had bagels and sandwiches brought in, and it was my job to pick up the food. I used company funds to buy groceries for myself and stocked up my fridge in my apartment. I also bought my school books and used my boss's credit card to buy clothes when he asked me to buy something for his wife. I bought winter coats, gloves, warm boots, etc. I couldn't have survived without stealing. For the whole time I worked at that job, I was able to pay for school, pay my rent, and save a little because my food, clothing, and transportation needs were met from the stealing. They never caught on because I was the most overlooked person in the office. I was like a little mouse no one noticed. Later, when I graduated and moved up in the world, I always helped the admins wherever I worked. I'd let them leave early if they had kids, or ask them to order extra food for themselves when we had office lunches, etc. I let them make copies on the office copier if they needed it for their school or their kids' school. I let them take pencil, paper, staples, etc. for their kids' school supplies. I was known as the nice lady boss. I encouraged a couple of them to enroll in night school and better themselves. I feel no guilt whatsoever. I stole thousands of dollars to make my life better, and I helped many people in return.
I've recently come to an unsettling yet oddly enlightening realization about my romantic preferences. My taste in men is not merely quirky or unique. It is a psychological case study waiting to be published. While most women are naturally drawn to men who exude confidence, tall, broad-shouldered types with jawlines sharp enough to cut glass and charm smooth enough to convince you they've read Nietzsche, my heart, rather rebelliously, beats for an entirely different species of man. I am, against all reason and self-preservation, magnetically drawn to those with social anxiety and a long-standing Reddit account. My ideal partner, whom I have come to affectionately refer to as the nonconformist, exists in quiet rebellion against traditional masculine archetypes. He is the man who avoids prolonged eye contact not out of arrogance, but out of shyness, the man whose complexion has grown pale from the soft glow of computer screens rather than sunlight. He wears uncertainty like others wear cologne. Compliments catch him off guard. When you tell him he looks nice, he blinks twice, as if trying to process a foreign dialect of kindness. This attraction of mine does not feel like a mere preference, it feels like a calling, a gravitational pull toward the soft-spoken and socially uneasy. Where others might see awkwardness, I see poetry. Where they see fragility, I see a rare kind of sincerity untouched by the performative noise of modern masculinity. I am particularly fascinated by men who have never been in a relationship, not those who are deliberately waiting for the one, but those who, by some cruel trick of circumstance or self-doubt, have simply never been chosen. There is something heartbreakingly pure about that. Their uncertainty in love, their disbelief at affection, their quiet panic at being wanted, it draws me in like gravity. I don't run from their inexperience, I find it tender. And then there are their peculiarities, the nervous laughter, the tendency to overthink, the way they grow silent when emotions get too close to the surface. If a man trembles with early anxieties, hides his passions out of fear of ridicule, or gets teary-eyed during a film, I don't retreat. I listen. I stay. I want to understand him, to offer warmth to the corners of his world that have never been lit. Looking back on my relationships, I now recognize the pattern, and perhaps the pathology. Time and again, I have been drawn to men who are gentle to the point of collapse, men who teeter on the edge of emotional withdrawal. I am, it seems, a collector of damaged souls. I find myself wanting to fix, to nurture, to prove that tenderness can coexist with masculinity. And yet, I can no longer pretend this is purely selfless. My attraction to brokenness is not saintly, it is beautifully chaotic, like adopting an injured bird and falling in love with the way it trembles in your hands. I convince myself I'm helping it heal, but perhaps I'm simply enamored with its fragility, with the illusion of purpose it gives me. Because maybe, deep down, I am not searching for a savior, but for someone who mirrors my own fractures. Someone whose silence speaks the same language as my overthinking. Someone whose uncertainty feels like home. I find myself unexpectedly yearning for something I am not prepared for, and I feel compelled to express these emotions as they have been weighing heavily on me. At 25, as a woman residing in the UK, I am currently receiving PIP and universal credit due to a disability, and I also have PCOS. Throughout most of my life, I was certain that having children was not for me. However, since turning 25, I have experienced a profound sense of broodiness, which has been both confusing and emotionally challenging. Whenever I encounter a baby or a young child, whether on television or in public, I am overwhelmed with emotion, often to the point of tears. There is a deep, almost physical yearning that I cannot ignore. Despite knowing that I am not ready for a child, financially, emotionally, and given the current state of the world, these feelings persist.
Now, technically, but emotionally, he's about 87. The weight he carries could crush a small planet, yet somehow, he still shows up to class like it's a normal Tuesday. When he was 6, he came home proudly clutching his school report card, not top of the class, but definitely not failing. Average. Solid. Respectable. But in his house, average was a crime against humanity. His mother looked at his grades and started crying. He didn't understand why, so naturally, he cried too, because when you're 6, you think every adult tear is your fault. That was the last time she ever cried for him. From then on, she upgraded to hands-on parenting, literally. Tears turned to slaps, hugs became insults, and report cards were now classified as weapons of emotional destruction. His father? Oh, you mean the decorative background extra? The man was there physically, but spiritually, he was off gambling somewhere in another dimension. He'd mastered the art of being present yet useless. A true pioneer of the bare minimum lifestyle. School didn't save him either. Turns out kids are tiny sociopaths. They bullied him for existing. He was too kind, too quiet, too easy to target, basically a walking, kick-me sign in human form. He'd get betrayed by people who'd smile to his face and laugh at him 5 seconds later. Teachers? Nowhere. Adults? Missing in action. The message was clear: congratulations, kid, you're on your own. When he was 9, he noticed his mom was going out at night, new clothes, perfume, mysterious phone calls. She thought he was clueless. He wasn't. He connected the dots, and they spelled out prostitute. Imagine being 9 years old and realizing your mom is out there, doing that. He kept it to himself, tucked it away like an emotional landmine, pretending everything was fine. Then the pandemic hit. Everyone was learning how to make sourdough and he was learning how to survive emotional isolation. The beatings slowed down, maybe because his mom got tired, maybe because she had Wi-Fi now, but the damage had already been done. At 13, she confessed it to him, not out of guilt, mind you, but out of pure spite. Something about using too much electricity. "I'm a prostitute," she spat. And he just looked at her and said, "I know." Cool as a monk. He'd known for 4 years. He was too numb to care. After that, she started posting things. Hot tub photos, thirst traps, and Facebook posts that made his classmates go, "Dude, your mom's kinda hot." Which, let me tell you, is not something you ever want to hear about your mother. But he didn't fight back. He smiled. He nodded. He laughed when expected. Inside, though, he was falling apart. He once said, "If death could just come painlessly and instantly, I'd take it." But he believed in God, so he decided to tough it out, because apparently, this world wasn't enough suffering, we had to think about eternal consequences too. We prayed together sometimes. He'd say, "God is my only hope," and you could tell he meant it. His eyes were old, not like, cute grandpa old, but, seen the apocalypse and came back with receipts bold. He was a people pleaser to his core, terrified of saying no. But slowly, he started to change. Just a little. He'd say no sometimes, like a rebel in a hostage negotiation. He told me once he didn't just want to leave, he wanted to erase himself. No photos, no trace, no one remembering he existed. He wanted to be a ghost. Not the spooky Halloween kind, more like the peaceful, leave me alone forever kind. Honestly? Relatable. Sometimes, he'd disappear for days. No replies, no updates. I'd spiral, imagining the worst. But he'd always pop back up like, "Hey." Like nothing happened. Meanwhile, I'd aged 6 years from worry. He still lives with his mother now. At first, it was innocent. Just reading people's confessions. Then I started posting. Then commenting. Then chatting. Slowly. Casually. Carefully. Like a man easing himself into moral quicksand. It started SFW, friendly chats, little dopamine hits from strangers saying, "You're funny." But then the DMs got warmer. Flirtier. And eventually. NSFW. Never physical, always virtual. No meetups, no faces, no real names. Just 2 anonymous people typing feelings they'd never say out loud. And then she appeared. The Reddit girl. Let's call her S. She was quick-witted, chaotic, and somehow matched my humor beat for beat. It was terrifying. I'd write something stupid like, "My love language is memes," and she'd respond with the perfect roast. We started talking regularly, finding time between my meetings and my guilt. And she got me. Not in the, we both like Marvel movies, way. In the, holy hell, did you just finish my emotional sentence, way. She didn't just listen, she understood. Our conversations had layers, laughter, intellect, sexual tension, and a mutual appreciation for dark humor and human weirdness. It was, dare I say, electric. We never met. Never exchanged more than words. But it was enough to wake something up in me. I felt alive again, like someone had jump-started the parts of my soul that had been in power-saving mode since 2017. For her, I was single. Which, okay, not great. But in that weird internet bubble, I almost believed it too. We existed in this little pocket universe of banter and longing and plausible deniability. Then, real life intruded. She found a partner. We drifted. It was nobody's fault, just the slow decay of digital romance. But my God, it hurt. It felt like a breakup, which was confusing because technically, we'd never even held hands. Yet, there I was, grieving like a man who'd lost a soulmate he met in a comment thread. I spiraled. Everything reminded me of her, songs, quotes, even memes. She had changed me, or at least. I've been with my partner for 10 years, a full decade, which, in relationship years, is roughly a century and 3 emotional reincarnations. We met in college. She was my first everything, first kiss, first love, first person to watch me eat an entire pizza and still say, "You're cute." I was her first everything too, which felt romantic at the time, like we were writing some Nicholas Sparks origin story, but in hindsight, it's more like we built a love IKEA furniture set without reading the manual. We made it through long distance, which should have earned us a medal or at least a tax deduction. We got back together, powered through life, and recently got married, very recently, like the still getting used to saying wife without giggling stage. On paper, we're perfect, smart, successful, compatible, our families actually like each other, a statistical miracle. We're the couple you'd see on LinkedIn and think, wow, they probably read together in bed and recycle properly. But here's the thing, I love her deeply, yet we are fundamentally different. She's introverted, calm, methodical. I'm extroverted, chaotic, allergic to silence. We're yin and yang, but sometimes it feels like I'm caffeine and she's chamomile tea. It's not enough to break us, but it's enough to make me stare into the void of emotional dissatisfaction and say, huh. So this is marriage. The chemistry? It's fine. The sex? Competent. The communication? Functional. Our love is safe, warm, reliable, like a Subaru. But sometimes, I want a Ferrari crash. The kind of wild, unfiltered banter that makes you laugh so hard you nearly confess a childhood trauma by accident. And then, 2020 happened. The lockdown. The great introvert uprising. Everyone was baking sourdough and having existential crises. I, in my boredom, discovered the NSFW side of Reddit. Yes, I opened that door, and dear God, it was Pandora's box with Wi-Fi.
In the early 90s, I worked as a junior admin at a very large financial firm. I was taking night classes at CUNY and really strapped for cash as I wasn't paid well. The great thing about my job is that I got to eat for free because the bosses always had bagels and sandwiches brought in, and it was my job to pick up the food. I used company funds to buy groceries for myself and stocked up my fridge in my apartment. I also bought my school books and used my boss's credit card to buy clothes when he asked me to buy something for his wife. I bought winter coats, gloves, warm boots, etc. I couldn't have survived without stealing. For the whole time I worked at that job, I was able to pay for school, pay my rent, and save a little because my food, clothing, and transportation needs were met from the stealing. They never caught on because I was the most overlooked person in the office. I was like a little mouse no one noticed. Later, when I graduated and moved up in the world, I always helped the admins wherever I worked. I'd let them leave early if they had kids, or ask them to order extra food for themselves when we had office lunches, etc. I let them make copies on the office copier if they needed it for their school or their kids' school. I let them take pencil, paper, staples, etc. for their kids' school supplies. I was known as the nice lady boss. I encouraged a couple of them to enroll in night school and better themselves. I feel no guilt whatsoever. I stole thousands of dollars to make my life better, and I helped many people in return.